The video that you are about to watch is an excerpt of the original. After my long efforts in dealing with YouTube's copyright management system, I had to give up. I haven't given up my projects though. And while we cannot publish the entire video here due to the imminent danger of having the channel closed down, you can still enjoy excerpts which we've carefully chosen in order to make this video meaningful, fun, and educational. If you want to watch the complete video, including the sound of the music from the original recording, as well as special edition videos which will never be published here on YouTube due to the same copyright issues, and the Beatles 150 series, as well as other series and courses, you're welcome to visit my Ko-fi or Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this video.
A hard day's night.
A what?
Yeah, a hard day's night.
Hi everyone. We have arrived at the third Beatles album, entitled A Hard Day's Night. A Hard Day's Night is the first Beatles album to feature entirely original compositions, and the only one where all the songs were written by Lennon and McCartney. Interesting. Okay, so I guess I hadn't even thought about the significance of all the songs being written by the Beatles rather than a cover here or there, as I guess I've listened to a few in this journey so far. The song's title originated from something said by Ringo Starr. He said in a 1964 interview, "We went to do a job and we'd worked all day and we happened to work all night." Not surprising. "I came up still thinking it was day, I suppose, and I said, 'It's been a hard day.' And I looked around and saw it was dark, so I said, 'night.' So we came to A Hard Day's Night." So Lennon scribbled the lyrics on the back of a Matchbox cover and went to sleep. Paul recalls, "John said, 'I'll write it,' and he did. He came back the next day with it. I think he might not have had all the words. I might have been in on that middle 8. Something like that would only have taken 20 minutes. That would have been plenty of time to run through it." The Evening Standard journalist Maureen Cleave described a memorable taxi ride the morning the song was recorded. She said, "One day, I picked John up in a taxi and took him to Abbey Road for a recording session. The tune to the song A Hard Day's Night was in his head. The words scrawled on a birthday card from a fan to his little son Julian. 'When I get home to you,' it said, 'I find my tiredness is through.' Rather a feeble line about tiredness. I said, 'Okay,' he said cheerfully, and borrowing my pen, instantly changed it to slightly suggestive, 'When I get home to you, I find the things that you do will make me feel all right.'" The other Beatles were there in the studio, and of course, the wonderful George Martin. John sort of hummed the tune to the others. They had no copies of the words or anything else. 3 hours later, I was none the wiser about how they'd done it, but the record was made. And you can see the birthday card in the British Library. At 8:30 in the morning, there were John and Paul, with guitars at the ready, and all the lyrics scribbled on matchbook covers. They played it, and the next night recorded it. It had the right beat, and the arrangement was brilliant. These guys were geniuses. But this song, as well as the entire album, were written for the film that they played in. A film having the same title, A Hard Day's Night. According to music critic Richie Unterberger, writing for AllMusic, George Harrison's resonant 12-string electric guitar leads were hugely influential. The movie helped persuade the Byrds, then folk singers, to plunge all out into rock and roll, and the Beatles would be hugely influential on the folk rock explosion of 1965. The Beatles' success, too, had begun to open the US market for fellow English bands like the Rolling Stones, the Animals, and the Kinks. Some reviewers have identified the chilling opening chord of A Hard Day's Night as the official beginning of the middle period of the Beatles' career, which appropriately came to a close with the equally chilling final chord of A Day in the Life.
Hear, hear.
Okay. It has been suggested that this segment of their career was the most creative and influential period of pop music history. With the strident first chord of A Hard Day's Night, the music world had entered into a wonderful new era. Well, I'm going to have to listen out for this chord that is said to be marking their middle period. Well, That's interesting that there's the first period and the middle period and probably a later period. Actually, we say that a lot about classical composers because if somebody is really actively creating and continuing to challenge themselves in their creativity, they develop and they change. And as they mature, as their skill grows, as their experience grows, as their style changes, they find their own unique voice, or their own unique voice adjusts according to where they are in life. Of course, what comes out is different. But with the Beatles, it seems they're going and going and going some more. And so it doesn't surprise me that their style and their opus, what they've produced, is divided into periods. So I guess I will see what this one's like. I do hear a different sound in this song, very much. It has a sort of harder edge to it in a way. It feels like, well, it suits the title. I hear some new things in here too from the Beatles. It's more grown up. It's not just about falling in love and holding hands and kissing and sweet honey and all these things. It's talking about some real life challenges here. I'm definitely going to look at that first chord. It was a bit of a shocker for me at first. I loved it. It kind of was a dash of cold water in the face right off the bat to wake us all up. So, let's listen again. Yeah, that's a very wake me up kind of opening. Well, what kind of chord is this anyway? Let's see if we can break it down here. It sounds a bit like a cluster chord in a sense. But, okay, so we have D in the bass here. And then we move to, all right, we've got another D happening here. We have an F. We have a C. We have another D and then a G. So there isn't any really identifiable triad. We could turn it different ways. This is one of those interesting chords where there's nothing that really stands out as being the identifying element. If we play it, we've got several Ds here. There's a D, or rather it'll be here. And then we have this D, and we have this D here, at least on my score. Again, remember that these are transcriptions, and I hope that it's accurate enough to tell me how many Ds were played in that recording. It's kind of hard to pick it out just by the recording itself. So we've got quite a few Ds. But then we have other things which don't really belong to a D chord. We certainly don't belong to a D major because we have an F natural. I can put it down here, get a little more of a powerful sound. That sounds kind of like what's on the recording. Well, if I played it with my nails, it would be a bit stronger. Let's play it with the nails and bring it down a bit. There we go. And then something like that. So this particular chord is really quite complicated, and I wouldn't name it a specific triad. It's more like a combination of chords or a collection of notes which functions in a chord manner, even if it's not an easily, simply identifiable triad-based chord. Oh, I like that one. That one caught my attention too. This chromatic line here, which is, they're singing in thirds. And, well, let me remind you what chromatic means. Chromatic comes from a root word which means colored. And the idea is that we're using all the colors of the scale, all the colors of the music, even outside of the scale. Although it didn't originate to mean colored because of this reason, you can visualize it by thinking about the keys on the piano, the white and the black keys. And if you're playing every single one of those colors along the way, every white, every black, then you end up with a chromatic line, a colored line of music. And that's what we have here on this little bit where they're singing harmony. And then the way they step it up to another pitch higher and repeat the same chromatic sequence again. Now we're going back to hear the same verse again. And that's another thing I noticed in this song. I think I heard the verse 4 times. I'm trying to recall if any of the other Beatles songs I've listened to gave the verse 4 times. There were 3 times, but 4 times, I guess I'd have to go back and look through every single one. But it was very noticeable here in this one that I'm hearing it 4 times, as if they're really driving this home. 4 times. But every time we come to the end of it, there's a slight different ending. What is that little tin can sounding thing in the drums there? It's a great little touch. And one thing I noticed is that the drums here are kind of hitting pretty hard and pretty constantly. We're really, really busy. We're working hard. We're getting a lot done. It's been a crazy, crazy day and night. And oh boy, I really feel it. Interesting. They didn't scream yeah this time. It's more like, oh! Like, how do I tell you all I've been doing? It is too much, and I feel like I'm going to go crazy. That has a rather exotic feel, that guitar there. Bum, bum, ba da dum, bum. Da 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 dum. And then we hear it again. Bum, da 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 dum. Da 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 da. And it's a good thing it's in there, because I think it would be a bit dull without it. It's interesting the way the notes are spaced so far apart, and this is one thing that I find unique about the guitar as opposed to the harp or the piano. At the harp or piano, we tend to cluster notes closer together quite often, just as a matter of habit. We can always spread them out if we want, but because our fingers place them close together, then that's the natural default setup. Whereas with the guitar, because you have these strings tuned at different, wider intervals, and they're all still rather close together, you can have these wide intervals and play them quite easily. And that's what I hear right here is this wide distance from the low note. Let's see. This is going to be a G down here and a G up here. That's quite a distance away, and if I were trying to play that with one hand, it would be impossible. I just can't. I would have to use 2 hands. But on the guitar, well, of course, you're using one hand over here, but one hand is plucking all of those, and it feels so close together. And just a little thing that stands out to me because of the uniqueness of the instrument. It's a nice melodic climax there where we get up to the word tight, and they hold it, and then they repeat the word tight, and then yeah. All of that up there at the peak. And we are held there in suspense during that time, and we're expecting to fall back down, but it They keep us up there a little extra. And then we go back to the verse for the fourth time. And there at the end again, we hear that guitar strummed and plucked. Let's listen to this set of notes that we have here. We have a G. I'm going to play it lower so it sounds more familiar. That's our A, C, but do you hear what's underneath? It's a D, which doesn't belong to either one of those sets. This is kind of broken up into two chords. This one and this one. And we hear 1, but now I'm going to put the D in the bass. Suddenly, there's a lot more suspense to it. It feels unresolved. And that is the chord on which we end. It has nothing to do with the G, key of G. We've been in the key of G. We've been kind of banging away in the key of G. Then we end completely out of the key. The only thing different from the beginning chord is the presence of this A, which wasn't in the beginning chord. Other than that, what we hear in the guitar from here all the way to the end is built off of the same chord that screamed at us and woke us up out of bed at the beginning. But now listen to it. It's so relaxed. Still not entirely restful though because of this D in the bass. It keeps us feeling unsettled. I guess maybe the night's not over yet. That's really great. As I said, the bulk of the chords undergirding this piece of music are pretty ordinary. I don't say that as meaning that it's a problem or that it's a letdown. Not by any means. Ordinary is ordinary for a reason. Ordinary is ordinary because it's good and it works and it's the basis off of which everything else grows. But here what they've done to liven it up and make this a little bit extraordinary is to sandwich all of those standard chords between that wake up sound at the beginning and this kind of calming down but not finished sound at the end. And what makes it hold together is the fact that they are both the same thing, just manifested differently, articulated, laid out in the music differently, and it hits us differently. And that's how it ends. That was great. Well, as Vlad told me at the beginning, or gave me to read at the beginning, it is said that that chord marks the beginning of their middle period. I can't make that judgment yet because I haven't heard what comes next, and so I wouldn't be able to say that it marks a new period in their style. But comparing what I've heard before to what I hear now, and especially remembering the previous song when I said it sounds like it's a kind of summing up, a summary and gathering together of all that they've done up to that point. Now to hear them suddenly stepping out again and doing something which I haven't heard them do before with this chord, with the way they have used it to mark and to set the entire piece of music. I can easily see how this could very well be the start of their next period of composition, we could say. There we have it, and I'll see you all next time.